Now that we're down to 16 teams in the NCAA men's basketball tournament, the time has come to try and figure out which has the best chance of cutting down the nets in San Antonio in less than 2 weeks. The short answer: anyone could, but that wouldn't make for a very interesting article, would it? That admission is necessary, however, before we embark on this exercise of ranking the remaining participants. The fact is, all the teams still in the field are more than capable of winning any game on any given day. They're all members of major power conferences, after all, and they've all won their fair share of such contests to get to this point. We therefore base our power rankings upon each team's accomplishments to date while also taking into consideration its path forward through the regionals. We should add that while we did have the 2 eventual finalists at the top of our list a year ago, the upper tier of this season's Sweet 16 looks a bit more crowded. But with all that in mind, here's our attempt to put them in order of championship likelihood. No. 1. Florida. Our expert snort bracket has the Gators winning the whole thing. We'll stick to that, though they needed everything in the tank to get past 2-time defending champ Connecticut in the second round. Now that they've made it to San Francisco, they match up favorably with the rest of the teams in the region. Follow the madness. NCAA men's tournament bracket, scores, schedules, teams and more. No. 2. Duke. Bearing in mind what we said above about Florida, however, it's difficult to envision anyone in the field beating the Blue Devils if they maintain this level of play. The hot shooting of Tyrese Proctor has to be especially scary for future opponents who already have to contend with Cooper Flagg and Con Newpel. Fresh view, 5 new NCAA men's tournament takes and final 4 picks. No. 3. Houston. The Cougars have the stingiest scoring defense in the nation, let alone the remaining tournament field. They'll need to be locked in at that end when they arrive in Indianapolis, where they'll be playing de facto road games against Purdue and whichever SEC squad emerges from the other side. But this is a rugged group that has enough offense to sustain itself and draws inspiration from last year's early exit. The Cougars have the stingiest scoring defense in the nation, let alone the remaining tournament field. They'll need to be locked in at that end when they arrive in Indianapolis, where they'll be playing de facto road games against Purdue and whichever SEC squad emerges from the other side. But this is a rugged group that has enough offense to sustain itself and draws inspiration from last year's early exit. Keep track of the madness. Sign up for USA Today's sports newsletter. No. 4. Auburn. The committee designated Auburn the top overall seed but did the Tigers no favors with this loaded region. On the plus side, they'll be in their own backyard in Atlanta, but Big Ten tournament champ Michigan is playing as well as anyone, and after that a possible date with Tom Izzo and Michigan State could be in the offing. No. 6. Kentucky. Yes, Tennessee is seated higher in this region, but the Wildcats swept the Volunteers in the regular season. We'll therefore put them higher in the pecking order until Tennessee proves otherwise. The return of veteran point guard Lamont Butler has helped the Wildcats' already formidable offense operate more smoothly through the first 2 rounds. No. 7. Tennessee. With that said, however, the Volunteers have also improved their shooting in the postseason. If they find a way to get over the hump against the Wildcats, their imposing defense would give them a good chance against either Houston or Purdue. A lot will depend on the play of point guard Zakai Zeigler. No. 8. Michigan. Did we mention the South region is loaded? That number 5 seed before Michigan's name might be more a function of the Big Ten Tournament Finals' late placement on the Selection Sunday schedule, as it can on occasion prevent the committee from adjusting the bracket on short notice. But the play the hand you're dealt approach has served the Wolverines well thus far, and they'll be well prepared for this date with Auburn. No. 9. Texas Tech. The Red Raiders are banged up, but they still enter Thursday's contest against Arkansas as slight favorites. They'll likely face an uphill climb advancing further, especially if Florida awaits in the Elite Eight, but as the only Big 12 squad to claim a win against Houston, they can't be counted out. No. 10. Alabama. A number 2 seed that reached the Final Four a year ago should probably be higher on the list. But this year's version of the Crimson Tide is more prone to defensive lapses, a trait that could send them packing as early as their next contest against a high-scoring Brigham Young team. They found a way in the regional rounds last year to put it all together. Perhaps Mark Sears and Grant Nelson can turn back the clock. No. 11. Purdue. The Boilermakers are an interesting case. On the one hand, they're an experienced group familiar with the pressures of March, but they've had to rework their system with a literally large piece of last year's puzzle gone. A cold spell from the arc or a spate of turnovers would be fatal against any of the remaining teams in their region, but they'll have a significant portion of the Indianapolis crowd in their corner. No. 12 Brigham Young. We have the Cougars above a couple of the 4 seeds on this list, and we still might have them too low. They've won 11 of their last 12, and Richie Saunders has emerged as one of the stars of the tournament. BYU will have no fear about running with high-scoring Alabama, but a probable date with Duke in the subsequent round could be the end of the line. No. 13 Arizona. Of the 6 Sweet 16 teams that also reached this point last season, we give the Wildcats the shortest odds of advancing farther simply because of their next assignment. Granted, they're playing considerably better than they were in November when they managed only 55 points on their home floor against Duke, but the Blue Devils will still pose matchup problems across the entire lineup. No. 14 Maryland. Derek Queen's buzzer beater that enabled the Terrapins to stave off Colorado State will be replayed numerous times over the next couple of weeks. But while Maryland's starting 5 compares favorably with a lot of teams, its thin bench is going to become a factor starting with this date with Florida. Can the Terps squeeze past the Gators? It's unlikely, but the Final Four would be one win away if they pull it off. No. 15 Arkansas. While one underestimates any team coached by John Calipari at one's peril, there is nevertheless a reason that Arkansas is a 10 seed, namely that 2-digit number in the loss column. The Razorbacks earned enough wins in the SEC to squeak into the field, but they aren't likely to string many more together to go much farther. Should they find a way to get by Texas Tech, however, it is worth noting that they played Florida to an 8-point game in January. No. 16 Mississippi. Somebody has to bring up the rear in a rankings list. The Rebels get the honor for a couple of reasons. They've undeniably impressed in March but just as undeniably benefited from facing a short-handed Iowa State. Should they find a way to get by Michigan State, they'd likely encounter an Auburn squad that has already beaten them 3 times.